Get a seat and let's get talking on our main conversation for tonight right here on Politics Today. So sacked Governor of Imo State, Mr. Emeka Ihedioha of the PDP, is not letting go after the Supreme Court removed him from office a few weeks ago. Both the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and Mr. Ihedioha have since indicated their interest to approach the Supreme Court to revert itself on the judgment that ousted him based on what the duo said was a misinterpretation of fact in the collation of election results. Mr. Ihedioha and the PDP have formally filed an application at the Supreme Court seeking a singular relief to reinstate him as governor and sack Mr. Uzodinma, a former Attorney General in the administration of Ihedioha. Ndukwe Nwawushi says that the opposition, the PDP and Ihedioha, had reviewed the judgment of the Apex Court delivered on 14 January 2020 and decided to approach the Supreme Court to review its judgment. The big question here, everyone, tonight is the Supreme Court is the ultimate court of the land. They always say that after God is the Supreme Court, in the sense that when the verdict of the Supreme Court is made, it's final. It's a final court of the land. So can the Supreme Court reverse itself? Can the Supreme Court rewind and say what I said earlier is wrong and reposition its judgment? Can that happen? Well, a big question again on the minds of a lot of people is that what will happen in the case of Mr. Ihedioha? Let's get talking, everyone, tonight on the program. I have joining me tonight Mr. Cyprian Akaolisa. He's the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Justice in Abuja studio with the Imo State Governor. Thank you so much, Mr. Akaolisa, for joining us tonight. Let's begin the conversation, Mr. Akaolisa. Are you worried, are you concerned that the Supreme Court might just reverse itself?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening, Nigerians. It's important for us to, first of all, recognize that we are running a democratic system of government, and with tiers of government that is supposed to sustain that democracy. The Supreme Court is the apex court of the land. It is the organ that interprets our laws and determines conflicts between persons, even in election matters, such that when the Supreme Court has taken a decision on a matter, it's expected that every Nigerian, irrespective of what the person is or who the person is, must respect the judgment of the Supreme Court and accord the Supreme Court the respect that it deserves. Where Nigerians or political party or individual politicians decide that they will not accept the verdict of the Supreme Court, it raises a lot of concern to all of us, because everybody is subject to the law, and we expect that we should respect the integrity of the verdict of the Supreme Court and accord it, because the Supreme Court is the highest court of the land. Just like you said, it's the last hope of the common man. So when we begin to see responsible people casting aspersions, making comments that are not palatable, inciting the public against the Supreme Court, it leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, it worries me.
Mr. Akaolisa,
yeah,
you have not quite answered the question that I asked. I said, are you concerned that the Supreme Court can reverse itself? You're a lawyer and you know the processes of law. Are you saying that it is not right for someone who is aggrieved in a matter to raise objection to a judgment of the Supreme Court? Are you saying that?
No. I said the Supreme Court has the power to look at its own judgment. But there are fundamental conditions upon which the Supreme Court can do that. But I was saying that fundamentally, people should accept the verdict of the Supreme Court. That is what is expected in a democratic setting like Nigeria. That is what is expected under our judicial system. That when the Supreme Court has passed a verdict, people should respect that verdict of the Supreme Court and not to cast aspersions on the integrity of the judges who deliver the judgment. You can, if you are saying that the judges made a mistake, they did this, did that, you are impinging on their integrity. That is the point I'm trying to make. That we should not, if you decide to do that, every day people will start to go to Supreme Court to go and have their matters reviewed. You understand that there are a lot of judgments that have been delivered. In the case of Imo, in the case of Kanu, in the case of Sokoto, are you saying that the APC, in respect of all the judgments that have been delivered against APC, are satisfied with those judgments? So why are we talking about the Imo case? Just because a judgment was delivered and it was against PDP, they decide to throw away, they decide to cast aspersions on the Supreme Court at the level, the way they are doing it. I'm not concerned, anybody can say anything about a judgment that has been delivered, but so for an institution like a political party, PDP as a political party, to throw everything to the wings, begin to call out people on the street, to challenge the judgment of the Supreme Court, they are trying to destroy the institution. But if they had gone to...
Mr. Akalu, sir, just a moment. This is not the first time that we are seeing or hearing people filing a petition or filing their grievance at the Supreme Court for a review. The big question here is that the chances of Mr. Ihedia getting justice at the Supreme Court for a second time, that is what they said is scaring your party. Are you scared of that possibility?
The APC Imo State is not scared of the possibility because we are certain. From the one when we filed our petition, our claims were very clear. We did not go to the street after the election to start doing protests on the street. We went to court, the tribunal, to ventilate our grievance. We articulated our petition and stated it clearly that we had our votes that were excluded. We wanted them to be added. And that was the point. We did it civilly, like reasonable people, like civilized people. We did not call out people on the street. That's the point I'm trying to make. I did not say they don't have a right to go back to Supreme Court. But I said the manner in which they are doing it looked as if they don't understand what the institution of the judiciary is in the context of our democratic structure in Nigeria. So we are not against their going back to the Supreme Court to ask the Supreme Court to review the case that the Supreme Court has adjudicated on. But on which foundation? You don't just go to the Supreme Court to ask for a review when you know in election matters, the time for the Supreme Court to decide the matter, 60 days has passed, the time has lapsed, and you bring a review. If you had brought the review within the time, the 60 days that the Constitution has provided for Supreme Court to hear election matters and appeals, it would have been reasonable for us to look at it and say you have something. But then, let us look at what they are even asking for. They are asking the Supreme Court to review the facts that were before them at the tribunal. The issues they are raising now on the facts are facts that were before them. The petition was filed with particulars. All the results, we stated the results and everything about the scores, served them the notice, and they saw it in the body of the petition. It was not disclosed by evidence. It was in the body of the petition. They ignored it. They said it was of no moment. We tendered results of the election, which we collected from our agents, 388. PDP did not tender one result. For them, it meant nothing. It was of no moment. The court called the police to bring their own copies, as stated in the Electoral Act, that after each election at the unit, you give the result, a copy of the result to the police. The court invited the police to come and tender their own copy. Police tendered their copy. PDP said it was of no moment. It didn't make any meaning to them. At the end of the day, these are the results and the evidence that the court relied on to declare Hope Uzodinma the winner.
Mr. Akaolisa, let's take a breather. We'll take a break. And when we come back, there are opposition to your submission and your argument on the basis of law, of course, from the other side. We'll hear those side. And when we come back, we'll talk more on the Imo governorship seat and the battle at the Supreme Court. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Mr. Emeka Ihedia of the PDP in Imo State is asking for a second chance after the Supreme Court sacked him when delivering the judgment. He's saying that the Supreme Court should remove Mr. Hope Uzodinma, who is currently the governor. The PDP and Mr. Ihedia are asking for a review of the Supreme Court judgment and the case of the Imo governorship seat. So let's get back to the conversation. Before we went on that break, we were speaking to Chief Cyprian Akaolisa, who is the Attorney General of Imo State and the Commissioner for Justice. And now we're being joined by Mr. Tochukwu Uwazuruike, a lawyer who is going to be speaking from the side of the PDP. Let's get to the now, everyone, or return to the conversation. And let me allow Mr. Uwazuruike to get into the fray now. Mr. Uwazuruike, you are asking the court to review its judgment in the case of the Imo governorship election. Just like I asked Mr. Akaolisa, whether he's concerned or their side are worried about the possibility of that reversal, what gives you the confidence or what makes you think that the Supreme Court, in a unanimous judgment of 5 judges, could reverse itself?
Thank you, Sean. The fact that the law provides that the Supreme Court can, in certain circumstances, in certain special circumstances, reverse its judgment means that it is a possibility that there are circumstances that could occur in the life of a case for the Supreme Court to come to such a conclusion that it needed to reverse its case itself. Now, ordinarily in cases, when you finish with the High Court, you are always told that once the High Court gives a judgment, you should go on appeal. The law also provides circumstances, special circumstances, under which you do not need to go on appeal to get a judge to reverse himself. And those circumstances include where the judgment was obtained by fraud and where the judgment was obtained by misrepresentation to the court or misleading of the court to come to a particular conclusion. So to that extent, if the Supreme Court had been, if the judgment of the Supreme Court of January 14, 2020 had been obtained by fraud, it means that where the Supreme Court is seized of the right information or the complete truth, or set of facts, as it were, the court would not have, as at the 14th of January 2020, when it gave that judgment, given the particular judgment it gave. So to that extent, the 60-day rule will not stop the Supreme Court from looking at that file again, because if it is, instead of allowing the misrepresentation and the fraud to continue because it is a Supreme Court or because there is a 60-day rule, it is better to err on the side of reversing itself so that no other court or subsequent cases will refer to that case as precedent. Because
so, Mr. Uwazuruike, so let's get it clear. Let's get it clear. On what ground are you asking the Supreme Court to reverse itself?
All right. Now, that judgment of January 14, 2020 was obtained by fraud. That is part of the grounds on which the application is made to the Supreme Court. What are the substances of this? Even under cross-examination, the candidate of APC, Chief Hope Uzodinma, admitted that he was the one that computed the results that he tendered before the court. It was not computed by INEC. He also admitted that there was overvoting during cross-examination when he was being questioned. And it also showed that the results of the election, which he tendered in the 388 polling units, did not include results from the 70 political parties that contested the election, but the results of only 2 political parties, APC and PDP. And not just the table that was part of the body of the petition. Even in the duplicate results sheets tendered even by the former police or director of operations who came to tender those result sheets. The result sheets he tendered were result sheets that contained results for only APC and PDP. The other 68 political parties that participated in that election did not have any results for them. To that extent, the question now is, could that election, those results have been the valid results that just in a particular set of 388 polling units, which were not included by INEC, to which also documents were tendered, exhibits were tendered in court to show that INEC did not generate any results, that those 388 polling units were either cancelled or that there was violence and elections could not be conducted in those places, no voting at all, and the voting materials were all returned to INEC. There were exhibits tendered, but circumstances warranted that the Supreme Court was misled into coming to the judgment.
Let me ask you this very quick and quick question. The question is that you're a lawyer, and it's a norm in law that you cannot get what you do not pray for. And this is one of the instances that have been played out here in this case, that the PDP did not pray that Mr. Ihedioha be returned as governor in the case that have been filed in court. Is that true?
What is the thing there is, you know, when the tribunal gave judgment, and Ihedioha cross-appealed. Then the Court of Appeal allowed his cross-appeal. In the judgment of the Supreme Court did not make any pronouncement on that cross-appeal that was allowed by the Supreme Court. So the obvious is that the last subsisting judgment on the issue of the cross-appeal of Ihedioha is the judgment of the Court of Appeal.
Okay, so on a very quick and sharp one
the
also.
judgment is a nullity, set it aside, and the last subsisting judgment will be the judgment of the Court of Appeal, and that will be normal in this circumstance.
If you can answer...
The Supreme Court can also now give further consequential orders to say, because of this review of this decision, and setting aside of our judgment of January 14, 2020, that one, status quo as at that date be maintained. And
all right, now a very quick one. In one sentence, from history as a lawyer, do you think that the Supreme Court in a 5 judges unanimous decision can reverse itself in one sentence? Because I like the Attorney General to respond to what he has just said. Do you think it's possible?
Yes.
Very possible, very, very possible. The Supreme Court will, instead of continuing to err, they will want to do the right thing, because other lower courts will cite the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Let the Attorney General, we will close the program with the response of the Attorney General of Imo State, Mr. Akaolisa. Give a quick response in just about 40 seconds because we need to close.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that my learned friend here said that the grounds upon which the Supreme Court can review its decision is on grounds of fraud or misrepresentation. Every statement on their review papers they have filed in their motion did not raise the issue of fraud, did not raise the issue of misrepresentation.
Yes, sir.
All their allegations are about figures that the Supreme Court did not put into calculation. Does that amount to fraud? Who is fraudulent in this instance? Is it the Supreme Court that is fraudulent? Is it the judges that you are accusing of fraud? Or is it the papers that we have filed in court that we went through all through the trial? Did you raise fraud as an issue throughout the trial, from the trial court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court? You are now alleging fraud at the Supreme Court after the Supreme Court has given its judgment, delivered its judgment. What are the particulars of fraud that you are raising? You are saying fraud, misrepresentation. What are the files that were misrepresented, upon which you now want to file a review? We all are lawyers. We know what fraud means.
All right.
We know the
We need to leave you at that, Mr. Akaolisa, Mr. Cyprian Akaolisa, the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Justice in Imo State, and Mr. Tochukwu Wazurika, a lawyer, speaking for Mr. Ihedioha and the People's Democratic Party. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on. So that's what we do right here on Channels Television Politics Today. We bring you the two sides in a matter so that you can make informed decision. But before we go, I'll take just one of their views tonight, and this is a tweet from Emperor OBJ. He says, Supreme Court justices hear and decide cases that have broad legal and political significance. For this reason, opinions issued by the court are most meaningful in terms of their substantive impact on the society. That's just what we can take tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye for now.